Welcome to the third evening of the TU Delft for Life Experience Week 2021. Due to Corona restrictions, it is not possible to organize a live event, so this entire Alumni Week is broadcasted online, the second best option to involve TU Delft alumni in the latest developments of the university. My name is Lex Woodley and I will be your host this evening. And let me emphasize the welcome. These are still extraordinary times. I hope you all are healthy and thank you for joining us at today's event. Today, we will talk about health and how to improve the healthcare system in the future. We have the Rector Magnificus of TU Delft, the chair of the executive board Erasmus MC, and several scientists present this evening. So let's start.
3, 2, 1.
I am here with Tim van der Hagen, Rector Magnificus and Chair of the Board TU Delft, and Ernst Kuipers, Chair of the Board Erasmus Medical Center. Before we start a conversation about the very hot topic, healthcare, let's first check who else is joining us in tonight's session. We have a few poll questions to find out about you. Let us know, because the first poll question, and I'm looking at the screen so I can see what you are saying, is, what faculty did you graduate from? We have 8 options, and which option is the most popular tonight in that sense? What do you see? What do you see, Tim?
Industrial design is
Yeah.
in the lead now, followed by electrical engineering, mechanical engineering. Yeah,
Yeah.
But representation from all the schools, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Very broad.
Yeah, indeed. We have another question for you, and that is, what year did you graduate? Curious about that. Is that very recently, like 2012, 2021, so last year? Or is it almost a decade ago, perhaps? What do you see, gentlemen? It is between 2010, 2019. That is,
Okay.
that's
Tim,
good.
which year
Very
did you
young.
graduate?
4 decades ago.
4 decades ago.
Sorry.
Also,
Something like that.
also recent. So,
So young and fresh.
so now we know more about the audience, the international audience joining tonight at this session. Let me tell you where I am at and where we are at. We are located at the Green Village, the testing ground for the sustainable innovation on the TU Delft campus. But where in the world are you? No, really, let us know. On the map that you see, you can put a stamp on the place where you are at, click view options, then annotate at the top and then select stamp. And if you can't find that, not a problem at all. Just leave your location in the chat. Now let's look at that world map. I expect quite some viewers from the Netherlands, California, great.
Yeah.
Earlier this
Beautiful.
week, we had someone from South
Spain.
Africa, Spain indeed. Will somebody let us know that they're from South Africa, perhaps, or South America or Australia? I saw Australia earlier on this week as well. But that's good to see. Nice. Yeah, always good to see
Beautiful.
where everyone is at.
Boston area.
Boston area couple.
Oh, I
Yeah.
missed that. Yeah, oh, I see it now.
Yeah.
I see it now. Ah, very good. Very, very good. As mentioned before, Tim van der Hagen and Ernst Kuipers are joining me at this table, and we will talk about health and our healthcare for the future. Being healthy, often high on our personal agenda, I'm sure, but over the last year, absolutely top of mind worldwide. The coronavirus has shown us our vulnerability to the extreme on a personal level, but also on a systems level. The healthcare system, the economy, the political arena We have all become experts on vaccination strategies and corona restrictions, right? Later on, 3 TU Delft scientists will join us, sharing their latest research and commitment to making us healthier and making being healthy easier. Feel free to post any questions you may have in the chat, and we will try to have them all answered through the course of this evening. Let's kick off with some words by Tim van der Hagen about the importance of collaboration to achieve impactful innovations.
In het huidige tijdsgewricht. Of het nu gaat om klimaatverandering, gezondheidszorg, digitalisering of de energietransitie, radicale innovaties zijn nodig om ze het hoofd te bieden. En dat begint bij samenwerking. Er is geen bedrijf, overheid of kennisinstelling die dat alleen kan. Daarom zie je momenteel 2 grote bewegingen in de kern van onze universiteit. Onze campus wordt steeds meer een plek waar industrie en academie hand in hand gaan. Er wordt hard gewerkt aan een innovatief ecosysteem met living labs. Door onderzoekers, bedrijven en overheid van meet af aan samen en dus op hetzelfde moment aan hetzelfde probleem te laten werken. Niet na elkaar, maar met elkaar. Daarnaast kruipen de Zuid-Hollandse topuniversiteiten in Rotterdam, Delft en Leiden letterlijk steeds dichter naar elkaar toe. Wetenschappers en studenten van het Erasmus Medisch Centrum en de TU Delft werken bijvoorbeeld samen aan de radicale innovaties die nodig zijn voor een toekomstbestendige gezondheidszorg. Samen dus. Dat is ook wat we in deze Xperience Week beogen. U mee te nemen en deelgenoot te maken van recente ontwikkelingen en ambities van onze topwetenschappelijke domeinen. Heel veel plezier!
Yeah, very exciting. He was speaking in Dutch, but well, he was saying that it is, what were you saying, handsome guy? Were you saying that?
Inspiring person.
Okay. Together is key. Impressive and inspiring words by Tim van der Hagen on how we can together achieve important, sustainable, impactful innovations. Corona has made the world stand still in many fronts, but let's go to more about these gentlemen, Professor Ernst Kuipers and Professor Tim van der Hagen. They are here, as you see. Thank you for joining us and taking time to share your insights with our alumni. And I'm sure that these are extraordinary and busy times for you both. Ernst, for our alumni in the Netherlands, you are a very public face in the corona crisis, but our alumni abroad may be less familiar with your role. Can you briefly explain your role as chair of the National Network Acute Care?
Sure. The national network actually connects all the healthcare providers throughout the Netherlands, either from primary care, hospitals, nursing homes, psychiatry institutes, etc., ambulance services. We already did so. The network exists now for more than 20 years. So its main task is to ensure that any citizen within the Netherlands, when there is an emergency, has immediate access. Now, through the COVID times, we were suddenly, like many places worldwide, we were suddenly faced with huge numbers of acute patients, usually not equally distributed throughout the Netherlands, but presenting one day all in one hospital and then the next day at another place. And so what we did as national network is set up a system where we could monitor capacity and numbers of patients and then distribute patients throughout the Netherlands to allow equal access continuously.
What can you say are your key takeaways, both positive and negative, from this crisis?
Well, for one, if I start with the positive, is that there is an absolute need for collaboration in healthcare. That's one. The other one is, and that's very much also the focus of our presentation here today and our discussion, and you will hear beautiful examples later, is that what you really need to address sudden issues like this, but also the things that we are facing for the coming years and decades, is the need for collaboration across many different fields. So what we really needed at the time for COVID were people who were able to help us with setting up systems for monitoring. We had a group from the TU Delft actually helping us to build new ventilators within 2 weeks, large volumes of ventilators for the ICU within 2 weeks. That was just an immediate, so the collaboration is needed. A very modern word, but also the agility. You have to be able to move very fast from one issue and one threat to another. And if I may add a third one, is monitoring and early detection. And that's also something for which we really need early new technology innovation.
It's over a year ago that Corona has entered our lives. Tim, where does the TU Delft stand now concerning?
Of course, well, last year has been extremely stressful and distressing for students. Thought they would enter a lively campus, starting their study here together with colleagues, students, and teachers, and now they're sitting at home watching the courses via the screens. Also stressful for our teachers, who in one weekend had to change their programs, their lectures from on campus to online. And 95% of them succeeded in one weekend, just 2 days. And they had to change their exams to an alternative method, an online method, in 1 week. 54,000 exams were changed in 1 week to an online method. It's enormous. So I have deep respect for everybody here, all the staff members, support, and students. The positive sign is, and I agree completely with what Ernst just said, is that the past pandemic, let's hope it's past, has confirmed that we are on the right track. It is all about merging of disciplines. It's not just healthcare, it's not just medicine, it's medicine and technology, social sciences and humanities. We have to merge all those different disciplines, and we as managers of the board have to facilitate our students and our staff in order to do so, and to make it possible for them to come up with new ideas, new avenues, not just in healthcare, but in all those major societal challenges that we are facing at the moment. And it's fantastic that we have nearby top institutions like Erasmus University and Erasmus Medical Center with exactly the same mentality as what we have in Delft. The TU Delft mentality is a sort of roll up our sleeves mentality. And I see exactly the same thing in Rotterdam. And that's why it works.
Mm-hmm. But when have you always known that you had exactly the same mentality, or was it kind of a surprise, like, oh?
No. Well, neither of them. On our way during the years, you see that there is a click with one another. We have, of course, several courses together already, several programs. We're working together on the synthetic cell, which is a very nice example. I'm a physicist by myself. And building a synthetic cell, so creating life from basic molecules, it's a combination of biology, medicine, and physics. And if you can make that happen, you can not only understand what life is, what the origin of life is, but also what the origin of a disease is. So you can create better treatments, earlier diagnosis, but also perhaps prevent diseases from occurring. And then you see, okay, this works. With these people, we can team up and we can make rapid progress.
So 2 years ago, TU Delft, Erasmus MC, and Erasmus University announced a far-reaching scientific collaboration, and you two are passionately motivated to make this collaboration work. Why do you believe so much in this fruitful collaboration?
Oh, it's when you think of it, it's really a no-brainer. If you look at the challenges that we have at the moment as a society, they are huge. If I just focus on healthcare alone, we already know that with an aging population, with major inequality, even in our Western world, well-developed public access, etc., there's major inequality in terms of access and access to healthcare and outcome of healthcare. Thus also life expectancy, etc., and that already starts at a very early age. Apart from that, we have large shortages in personnel, not only during a COVID crisis, but always. And if you add to that, if you simply look at the effects that climate change nowadays already has and will for certain have also on health and healthcare, then it's clear that we are never going to be able to solve this just from healthcare and medicine alone. So I recently spoke with students from the TU Delft, and I just challenged them and said, just imagine that you are the physicians of the next generation. What would you do? Because it's clear that we need you to think of concepts in terms of prevention, early detection, self-management, reducing inequality, etc. And when we just started, and you will hear beautiful examples, and it's much more interesting in our talk about what people are nowadays already doing. This morning we had a presentation together for people who focus from Delft and Erasmus University and Erasmus MC on the issues around healthy start, pregnancy, even before that, fertility, and then the first years of life. It was 3 groups of equal size all together in one group, but it was 147 full professors all focusing on addressing this topic.
Extremely impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So about this collaboration, how unique is this in the Netherlands?
I think we are the first and perhaps still unique. Others, of course, always also go via these routes. But I think we are ahead of the others. But I think it's a no-brainer, so it's logical that others will follow. Also outside the Netherlands, is what you see what is happening.
Yeah.
An holistic approach, the convergence approach, is a way to go. Is a way to address some major problems.
But it's, I mean, the challenges are such that it's just a positive that more groups are focusing on the same path, because you need each other. And that's also why we are looking and facing towards international collaboration on
So
this.
it's not a competition. That's not how science works. Science is always a collaboration.
Yes, that's good. Can you give an example of collaboration perhaps abroad? Because, you know, you said also you're probably going to look to see how you can collaborate with international, but are there international examples that you say like, well, that is a good way to...
Well, we saw here on the map, we saw people working in the Boston area. We saw people also in the Los Angeles, San Francisco area. We couldn't see here on the map, at least for us, because there was another panel over it, but there are similar examples in Singapore, just to give an example.
You see in Milano, you see the same type of convergence, ETH Zurich. So all these major centers where they have top university, top academic medical center, they join forces, they have to. If you nowadays look at the emergency control room, it's like I just said this morning. It's like a high-tech control center of a power plant. So that's what was my previous job, of course. So it's completely different from the old days clinical rooms.
I'm involved in a board member of the National University Health System in Singapore. They see the same challenges. They have apart from one, the eldest population worldwide. And they focus on seeking help and seeking solutions with the Nanyang Technology University, which is the counterpart of Delft.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. And coming back to TU Delft, when I think about health, then the first thing is not really TU Delft that I think of. How do you see that reflected actually?
Yeah, but perhaps when you think about health, the first thing that comes into mind is perhaps not technology. And yet, well, it's to a major extent. If you visit Erasmus Medical Center, you see a lot of technology. And perhaps at our university, I think about 30% of our researchers are involved in health and health tech. 30. 30. Okay. So it's enormous. It's all over the place. Whether it be industrial design or even aerospace engineering, because the logistics of a hospital are very similar to the logistics of an airport. Also in that respect, and there are many more examples. You will hear them later on, I'm sure.
So if young students now would consider and would think about envisioning themselves to see a career in healthcare, if in 5 years from now they would first think of Delft, our path would actually be a success.
Yeah.
It sounds strange from the Erasmus MC, but I'm honest, this is true.
Yeah, this collaboration, you represent TU Delft, Erasmus. Is it with this collaboration that you got to know each other, or did you know each other before that?
We knew each other before because we have here also a unique center, the Particle Therapy Center, which is a joint venture of Leiden University Medical Center, Erasmus Medical Center, and the TU Delft, where we treat tumors with particles instead of with X-rays. So there's one center in Groningen, and the other one in the Netherlands is right here on our campus. So I think that's where we first met.
Yes.
How long ago was that?
Oh,
I'm not sure.
7 years.
Yeah, close to 10 years.
Yeah.
It's almost like a relation.
He was
How
still
does
full
it
of hair. I remember.
Yeah.
very
Oh,
well.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, we should pull up pictures of that.
Yeah, if
Oh,
you don't believe, we have pictures.
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know whether we
that
can
would be
show them
funny.
now.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
Oh, I hear we
Curls,
do
actually,
have.
yeah.
Yeah, curls. Let's show. No, we don't. We don't. I have this brochure, and Tim. Yeah, recently TU Delft, TU University Fund launched the Tech for Health campaign to raise awareness and funding for health-related research at TU Delft. Why is funding needed?
It's very important to be able to speed up, to increase research capacity in terms of people, in terms of labs, to smarter labs and so on. So money is desperately needed. We have great ideas, we have great plans and ambitions, but well, there's always the euros that are lacking.
And why should alumni donate?
Because, well, for them it's a very interesting and promising field to contribute to a better world, even better society. And I have the feeling, at least as we treat them as one community. We're all in this together. So once a member of the TU Delft community, you are forever one of us. So we have 27,000 students, 6,000 employees, and 100,000 alumni. And together we form the TU Delft community.
What do you hope to achieve with this campaign?
First of all, to create awareness that we're doing great things together, that this is really the new way of doing science, and also for education, by the way, because also, of course, the courses will be changed with this merging of fields. And of course, also to create more rapid progress in research, top research I'm talking about.
Any message you would want to share with the audience before the scientists here join here at the table?
Well, I would like to thank them for the participation, and would like to hear their ideas and questions, of course.
We are going to hear it.
Yeah, I fully support that. Let's listen to your question, to your stories, because that's what people want to hear. It's very interesting.
And I'm glad that you positively endorsed this campaign via Twitter, on Twitter.
Yes.
So that's good. Why do you think that our audience should get involved? And what are your hopes regarding this campaign?
I hope that the alumni of the TU Delft will actually help to make this program a success, because as already shown, it's important for the Netherlands, it's important worldwide, and that's also why we seek these collaborations, because the challenges that I mentioned are not unique to the Netherlands, they're not unique to Western Europe, but they're really a global issue.
Great. Before we invite the others, we welcome you to ask questions. Time for Q&A. Ask Tim and Ernst questions via the chat. We can see the chats coming in, and I can also see it coming in via another way. So if you say what the question is, you also can come in live, and then you can ask your question as well. And while we are waiting for, well, one or more of you to come in live, I have a question here that is for both of you. How can the TU Delft, oh, that question just disappeared.
Was already answered.
Yeah, okay, I have Connie here. Connie would like to ask a question. Hello, we see you, and we are going to hear you.
Yeah. Hi, Connie.
You told us that it was merging the disciplines, but is it more transdiscipline what you are doing? I hope so.
Yeah. Yes, that is, of course. So it's multidisciplinary, transdisciplinary, interdisciplinary. But I also believe in the final step is merging disciplines. If you look at biotechnology, that is a new discipline that originated from biology and chemistry. And now we have nanobiology, which is already a new discipline emerging of biology and physics.
But
there is fintech.
There, and physics is still there. So you make.
Yeah, okay. Oh, okay. The original disciplines, of course, okay, now I understand your question. The original disciplines still maintain, of course, and still are necessary. Absolutely. Yeah. The building blocks will remain there.
We will not go back into history, and they will not disappear. But from that, new collaborations will lead to new entities.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
This answers your question.
Okay.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
Great. And if there are any other questions, do feel free to ask. Millie has a question for these gentlemen. Hi, Millie. We will probably see you on the screen, and if not, then I could. There you are.
It's on mute.
Yeah, it's probably on mute, Millie.
Am I okay now?
Yeah.
Yes, you
Yeah.
are.
A few years ago, I did a PhD in architecture on evidence-based design in hospital buildings. And I was wondering, of course, we are talking here a lot about technology and instruments and high-tech research, but is the hospital building also seen as an instrument to deliver safer and better care? And how can that play a part in this? Of course, Erasmus is a very new hospital, but within Delft, it's still, I think, undiscovered territory.
No. Well, if I can start, actually, when I explain to people from outside, not to the TU Delft alumni, because you're very much involved, but if I took to lay people about our collaboration and the Convergence, I always stress the fact that we're not deliberately and only thinking solely about the newest surgery robot or something, but that it actually is a very much broader field. For instance, also involving architecture and healthy living conditions.
Absolutely.
Or newer types of hospitals and healing environment.
Okay.
Like we've put a lot of focus also at the new Erasmus MC. Or think about digitalization and devices that allow people to be independent for a long period of time or detect diseases earlier on. So it's a very, very broad field, as you will also hear later from the examples, which includes architecture.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
The interesting thing, if I may add one
Sure.
remark, is that originally when we first started with these ideas and we had researchers from both our institutes talking together about what the potential options were, I remember that the dean of the school of, I call it
Architecture and the built environment.
Yeah,
he was there.
He actually raised his hand and he said, wait a moment, we need to be involved as well.
Because it's very interesting for our discipline as well. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what happened then.
Well, yeah. Especially, I think, which we learned from Corona is that the physical measures were the first one we could take instead of medical measures. So I think we should be. I think it would be nice if we participate on every field. Yes, thank you.
So that was the funny thing, that even we started, for logical reasons, we started not really having the full scope in mind of all the options, but you need the individual researchers to actually then explore and tell us what the options are. And this included the architecture.
Absolutely.
So on Monday, we had a session about artificial intelligence. What will be the most desired AI breakthrough in the health and healthcare domain?
Well, he's of course the specialist, so you should answer. But
Well,
I'm so fascinated by this. If you look at the amount of data that is available out there with people in let's say the healthcare system already, and for decades, of course. And if we could just get information out of that data by AI systems, we learn much about disease, occurrence of diseases, the connection between the way of living, working, food, and so on. So that's really a very, very wealthy set of data already that we have at the moment.
If I could add to that, at the moment and already for more than 100 years, healthcare is very much disease-oriented. It basically is you wait till something bad happens and then you try to repair it.
And you would like to see that differently?
Yeah, and we know if you use AI that there are many instances where you can, way before somebody calls into a doctor or you have the current means of prevention and early detection, there are ways already of detecting that something is wrong. So if I just give one example, very much focused on the hospital, but there are so many others which are more important outside, but just one is at our ICU. We know that patients, when they deteriorate, that we are usually at a very late stage only to detect that blood pressure is going down and etc. But there is, with AI, there are many very intelligent tools to already say hours before, sometimes even a day before, that there is something that need to be acted upon. And that shortens the stay, reduces costs, reduces the amount of personnel, and more important, improves outcome. It's just one example from within hospital, but there are many more, much more important outside the hospital.
Mm.
Do you know who is the first to know that the woman may be pregnant? It's Google. It's Google.
Really?
Because
yeah.
of the keywords that are used
Indeed,
in search.
indeed. Yeah.
So before the family.
Yeah. So you're saying, well,
Incredible.
that is already kind of AI.
That's AI.
And if you have more of that.
Yeah. So the information is tremendous that is out there.
Yeah.
And if we use that for the good, that's important, of course, because there are also ethical aspects involved that we have to care about.
Mm. You said yeah.
That's
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Privacy and so on.
Yeah.
How can the TU Delft and Erasmus MC collaboration help to prevent or guide a pandemic in the future?
Well, it's all about the PDPC, Ernst.
This is all, well, if you start with the PDPC.
The Pandemic and Disaster Preparedness Center that we announced, I think it's 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Yeah.
3 weeks ago. So a great idea that came up from Marian Koopmans and then people from Erasmus Medical Center. But there we teamed up and already, and well,
so the recognition is that, again, if you look, well, we were now very much focused on a pandemic. One virus, one particular type of disease, etc. But much of the alarm systems and the way to respond to it is very similar, whether you have a pandemic, a virus, or you have flooding, or you have man-made disasters, etc. So when we realized that, we again actually merged expertise from our virologists, from our public health experts, together with people here,
the climate change people,
and all the others to create a center for what we call pandemic and disaster preparedness, which focuses on surveillance, on early detection, on ways of responding, many others. So that is, we actually opened it a few weeks ago, as mentioned, and already, again, many researchers are jumping on it. And it's not just a totally new group. We had these expertise already within the TU Delft, within Erasmus MC, within the Erasmus University, but they were working on their own within their own field. Only later, through this Convergence initiative, recognizing what you are doing is actually what I need or what I'm also working on, but from a different perspective.
That's why we could gear up very rapidly. So in a few weeks' time, we had it already, and everybody enthusiastic and so on. So
George or Jorge has a question.
Oh, Jorge. Okay.
Let's hear your question. And I believe you do not have your camera on, but if we can hear you, then, and if not, then I have your question here.
Yeah,
there you are.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I cannot turn on my camera.
No worries.
Well, my question is, as you know, there's one thing that is research, but the other thing is to join this research with the real world. So one way to do it is to
Could you repeat what you said? Could you repeat what you said?
Yeah, are there plans to encourage entrepreneurs to help us students to become entrepreneurs, to join the research with the real life?
Yes, also there we team up together, Erasmus University, Erasmus Medical Center, and our university. Of course, we have a rather long history already, both in Rotterdam and Delft. We have now 245 companies on our campus in Delft, many startups. And we now team up with the incubator system in the Rotterdam area. And also our alumni are extremely heavily involved there. They created what they call the Graduate Entrepreneur Fund and the Graduate Entrepreneur Platform in order to coach young entrepreneurs, to help them, and also to invest money to create for them a rapid start.
Yeah, because that's important. I mean, otherwise then everything just is theory and nothing becomes an actual product.
Absolutely, you're fully right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So if I can add to it, again, as you know, Delft and Rotterdam, it's very close by. In Dutch terms, it's in biking distance.
Yeah.
And
16 kilometers around about,
Yeah, so
somewhere
it's
there, right?
So we started recently to also already create facilities at the Erasmus Medical Center campus for startups, people from Delft, for instance, young entrepreneurs who need to start but need immediate access to healthcare and to physicians and expertise that is present, and you will hear beautiful examples. We only started a few weeks ago, and the first 3 startups have already settled, and we are negotiating with the next 2, so things go very quick.
Yeah,
That's good to
very
hear.
fantastic.
Yeah. Erica, you have a question. Hello. Hi.
Yeah, hi. I was trying to unmute. Hi. Yes, I am alumni from almost 4 years ago. I live in the Netherlands already 7 years, and honestly speaking, I have a very critical point of view regarding the healthcare system in the Netherlands. I don't find it preventive at all.
No.
So there are no preventive tests. Like, for example, my father had cancer, and there's no preventive test to see if I would have the same cancer he had, because I know he's hereditary, you know. And if you go to ask the house stats, they don't really help you to do any of those kind of things, you know. So every time I go to my home country, I need to do myself the test, because here there's no support. So I really like what you are doing to do all the research. Like, that's really good. But how are you going to detect early if there's no preventive testing or preventive? How do you say that?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, for one, I absolutely agree. Unfortunately, that the Dutch healthcare system is not focused sufficiently on prevention. I've worked for long in the prevention area, very much from my own background, which was in gastroenterology. And if I just explain that between first initiating and starting with an initiative to create a colorectal cancer prevention program in the Netherlands, which was already there in many other places, and the full rollout, it took me 16 years. 16 years. So I agree. And I think that the recognition is nowadays, it's slow, but nowadays also with our Minister of Healthcare and others, that we need to focus much more on prevention. And I think within Europe, the best example is in the Scandinavian countries, where they have envisioned that by the year 2030, they will want to spend 50% of their current healthcare budget, readdress that to prevention, which is a huge task. It's very ambitious. If you look internationally also, not only the Netherlands, but many countries, with a few exceptions, actually already at current do not take the full benefits from what is already possible in terms of prevention. And what we are focusing on is actually increasing that capacity. We need to do that. Otherwise, healthcare as we do it now is not sustainable. Not in manpower, not in costs, not in outcome, etc.
You said it's just going to
Yeah,
explode.
absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you all for
Thank you.
the inspiring questions. For the viewers at home, we will continue the discussion soon with 3 scientists who are also part of the Tech for Health campaign. But before they will join us on this table, I'd like to share another message with you that shows how important our engaged TU Delft alumni community is for us. I gladly take this opportunity to share the winner of this year's Alumnus of the Year Award, an award for alumni who have more than proven themselves in the world of innovation and research. Last year, Francine Huben, founder of Meccano Architects, has been elected. And for 2021, you will know after this video.
Cliffhanger.
De Alumnus van het jaar is een prestigieuze titel die jaarlijks wordt uitgereikt door de TU Delft en door het Universiteitsfonds. Dit doen wij omdat wij enorm trots zijn op onze alumni, een community van Delftse ingenieurs. Zij maken het verschil in de maatschappij en zij hebben de impact in de wereld.
De alumnus van het jaar 2021 komt uit een familie met veel technisch talent. In september 1983 begon ze haar studie hier aan de TU Delft, civiele techniek. En die ronde ze met succes af. Na haar studie in april 89 begint ze als expert watermanagement bij Witteveen en Bos. En daar maakt ze een indrukwekkende carrière door.
Haar bijdrage aan het werkveld van de civiele techniek is enorm. Vanuit haar visie op de leefomgeving en infrastructuur heeft ze grote invloed op de ontwikkeling van ons land en draagt ze middels belangrijke functies, zoals lid van de Raad voor de Leefomgeving en Infrastructuur en lid van de NWO-board voor het domein Technische en Toegepaste Wetenschappen, hieraan bij.
Haar manier van leiding geven, altijd met oog voor de menselijke maat, is een voorbeeld voor velen. In 2018 werd zij in Londen uitgeroepen tot Europees CEO of the Year. Een bevestiging wat wij natuurlijk als TU Delft al lang wisten. Wij zijn enorm trots dat zij alumni is van de TU Delft.
Als kroon op haar indrukwekkende carrière en haar bijdrage aan BV Nederland in het algemeen. Ze is enorm inspirerend voor ons allemaal, zowel binnen als buiten onze community. Dames en heren, de alumnus van het jaar 2021 is Karin Sluis. Hartelijk gefeliciteerd, Karin.
Dankjewel, Tim. Wat ongelooflijk leuk. En wat een mooie, ja, wat is het? Medaille, oorkonde. Heel leuk. Ik ben echt apetrots. Ja, jeetje, alumnus van het jaar worden, dat is natuurlijk wel... ja, het is mentaal bijna het hoogst haalbare voor een Delfts ingenieur, toch? Ja. Dat je uitverkozen wordt om een jaar te vertegenwoordigen van Delftse ingenieurs. Ja, dat is ontzettend bijzonder.
Congratulations, Karin Sluis, with this beautiful award. Back to our topic of tonight, to profile the urgency of health innovation. TU Delft and the University Fund started the Tech for Health campaign. 7 scientists were selected for this campaign to highlight their health research and their dream. 3 of them are here in the studio. You may have already seen them pass by via social media, email, or a mailing that has fallen on your doorstep. Again, feel free to post questions in the chat. Welcome, David. You are not originally from the Netherlands. What made you choose Delft?
Yeah, this is true. Actually, I am French, but I have to declare that I did my PhD here in the Netherlands at Erasmus MC. So I already start to embody a bit that convergence between Delft and Rotterdam, as you can see. And after a rich career abroad, France and the USA, I decided to come back here to do research in Europe. That's very important to me. And here we have a very exciting environment, close collaboration between these 2 institutes, and I'm really thrilled to be here.
Could you explain something about ultrasound research?
Yes, so a very interesting point for all the audience. If you think of ultrasound, this is probably the first image of any of you in this world. You know, all of you start in the world by the image of a baby acquired by an ultrasound probe. My research, maybe very shortly, is to try to open new territories for that technology. And one in particular, which is really important, I think, is to look at the brain. Look at the brain with ultrasound because it is a very democratic technology. It is quite affordable. You can display it all around the world. And it is very benign. It is very safe. Nowadays, we are capable to do beautiful images, rapid images, and safe images. And I hope we can help aging population by looking at the brain as well.
Could you speak more about collaboration with Erasmus?
Yeah, this is also an interesting point because for me, especially having done my PhD in Rotterdam, that collaboration has always existed. So I think this department and this at least biomedical engineering field is one where it was so obvious to collaborate that it has been happening for years. I'm just happy that the rest of these institutions is also embarking on that project.
And I see something interesting in front of you. What is it? What did you bring with you?
So I don't know if you can see it in the camera. So this is my daily instrument, an ultrasound probe that we use to, scan the body. You can couple it to any part of your body, your neck, look at blood vessels, look at organs, look at the heart, and Natasha, I'm sure you will speak about that as well. And so this is my music instrument. I play it the way I want to make beautiful images of the body, except that you will never hear it because it's ultrasound.
Yeah, very, very clear. How will you spend the gift from the university fund?
Yeah, so I'm very thankful of that initiative. And I would say, especially because we talked to the alumni today, my first idea is to invest in the talented PhDs and researchers that have joined my lab. Through that gift, I would like to offer things that are usually difficult to fund, like investing in their training, for example, sending them to summer schools, trying to educate them and make them better at what they do for the sake of, the lab and society. The second thing that we have a hard time getting funded is infrastructures. And I think with the help of this campaign, I can renovate our lab space, try to make it more efficient, more modern, and hopefully speed up all the things we do.
Sounds good. Thank you. Natasha, welcome. Can you give an explanation concerning your research?
Yes, I'm looking into the mechanism of cardiac arrhythmias. So your heart is like a pump and you need electricity to make it function normally. And when you develop a cardiac arrhythmia, there is something changing in the electrical activation of your heart. The question is, what is it? And at this moment, we don't know. And because we don't know exactly the mechanism of the arrhythmias, we can also treat it not very well. So the most ideal approach would be to measure the electrical activity directly from the surface of the heart. And we have that during cardiac surgery. When you open the chest, you can actually see the heart because it's really on top of it. So you have your heart like this, and you want to measure here the electrical activity. And for that, the engineers here in the Technical University, Delft, designed what we call some kind of electrode. It looks like a piece of plastic with numerous measuring points on it. And we give it to the surgeon, and the surgeon then put it on the heart and shifts it across the surface of the heart. And in this way, you can very accurately measure electrical activity. And by doing so, when you have patients with and without cardiac arrhythmias, you can compare these patterns of activation and you hope to find the abnormalities.
Very interesting. Very interesting. You also work at Erasmus MC.
Yeah, that's correct. I work there as a cardiologist and electrophysiologist. An electrophysiologist means that you're specialized in diagnosis and therapy of cardiac arrhythmias. And from that part of my job, I saw many people who you cannot treat very well when they present with cardiac arrhythmias, and there became my passion to hopefully alter that.
How will you spend the gift from the university fund?
Well, mainly now focus on adult patients with cardiac arrhythmias, but we now see that if a child is born and has a malformation of the heart, that the surgical techniques are so advanced that the children survive and they become 10, 20 years old. But at the age of 20, the problem starts because then they start to develop arrhythmias. And why is that? What is so abnormal in these people? Because if you look at the adult population without malformation of the heart, you develop it at the age of 60. So why do we now develop it at the age of 20? And for that, I want to measure the electrical activation in newborn children, so children of 1 to 7 years old. But if I use an electrode like this, it's too big because the heart is probably size like this. So we need dedicated electrodes to measure the activation. And in this way, if we can see what the abnormal activation is, we hopefully can also treat it very well.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Richard, welcome. Hi. Could you explain Consultation Room 2030?
Yeah, I can. And that's one of the projects that might connect to one of the questions that we had earlier on, because what we think is, well, one of the basic parts in healthcare is when a consultation takes place. There's a discussion between the specialist and the patient. And when you look at what happened the last 100 years in technical innovation in that area, well, it's the only thing that you see is that there was a computer in the room. And we think that there is much more potential. AI was mentioned, virtual reality is mentioned. You can use before that event to empower the patient in some way. Afterwards, you can do monitoring at home. So there are many, many elements that you can innovate in the consultation room. So we think, well, maybe the consultation room doesn't exist anymore in 2030. And maybe it is at home, or maybe you go to the supermarket to get a consultation or whatever there is.
To the supermarket, you said?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
Now, yeah. So there are many, many ideas to innovate. And that's, I think, what we try to do in it. And we started with interviewing 25 stakeholders in the consultation room. So it's not only the specialists and the patients, it's also insurance companies, education. So people need to be educated. Now, a lot of different disciplines that all said how they looked at the consultation room of the future. And that's the project that I'm in.
Can you tell us more about your role in the entire health community, including Erasmus?
Yeah, so I also did a PhD in Erasmus a very long time ago, but I'm now the program director of the Convergence Health and Technology. So with a large team, we work on a daily basis to make that connection. So we think of all kind of elements that we need to have to support all the scientists. So that's my role currently. And here in Delft, I'm a professor, but I'm a chair of the Delft Health Initiative, which is what, as Tim said, 30% of the researchers are connected to health. And so there's a virtual organization, the Delft Health Initiative, connected.
Now, Richard brought something, Natasha brought something. Did you bring something as well?
I brought two things.
Two things even.
So one thing, I brought three things, but I can only
wow.
So one of it, so you need ideas. So you need to have ideas, and you have different disciplines that you can connect. And one of the disciplines that can make really good connections are designers. I see them as connectors of engineering, for example, with psychologists or with medical. 20 years ago, we started a track in the design faculty. It's called MedDesign, Design for Healthcare. Every 3 years, we make a booklet with ideas of those master's students. This is the 7th book, which means that we had 1,000 ideas, innovative ideas for healthcare this year. And so I want to stimulate those ideas. And so my idea about stimulating those ideas is to, when we have nice ideas in the healthcare, in the consultation room, that we try to bring that a step further than the ideas that are in these kind of booklets.
That is one thing that you brought.
The other one is a lot of things can happen outside, as we said in the supermarket, and that might be an exaggeration of it. But so this is an example of a preparation of an operation that totally happened outside of the hospital. So it was a clavicle, so the clavicle of a patient of a traumatic surgeon in Erasmus Medical Center. He needed to operate, but there was a good side, so not damaged, and a bad side. And he normally does the operation, by trying to do it. So we 3D printed the clavicle of that patient, but also the good side. We used the good side as a mold for the preparation of the operation. He did this preparation totally outside of the hospital. In the operating theater, he did the operation, and now it went really quick. And the patient was, after 3 years or many years of problems with his shoulder, was entirely without pain anymore.
That's great.
So this is things that can happen outside with 3D printing.
Yeah, and you said you have a third thing.
Yeah, that's in my. Then I have to go off the
table. No, but tell us about it.
Later on.
No, but tell us about it.
Yeah. Now, the third thing is, so we have ideas, and they are in the booklet. Then we have real demonstrators, you could say. And the third thing is, and that was also mentioned, what is the real impact? So do we see it in the society, those ideas? So that was the third example. So we also have another idea out of this booklet. And I wanted you to show the product that is currently on the market, sold by a real company. And that was after the idea was in this book.
I almost want to ask you to go and get it, but let's see how it goes. How will you spend the gift from the university fund?
Yeah, as I said, so we don't know exactly how large the gifts will be, of course. So we want to support all the ideas that are in the consultation room 2030 and take them one step further. So all the students normally are in need of some means to take it one step further. So that's how I would like to spend it. If you go one step further, of course, you can think about, let's make a doctor at home van and then drive around in the city and try all those innovations and move them towards the patient's homes to see if you can, for example, by means of virtual reality, do consultations, or if you can do other things. So if it's rather smaller, I would use it for taking the ideas one step further. If it's a little bit bigger, I would like to use it as use cases. So a demonstrator that we drive around between Delft and Rotterdam. That's my idea.
Okay. So now it's time for another Q&A. And now you can ask questions. Well, maybe you have a question for Richard or for Natasha or for, sorry, I said Richard to you, I meant David. I know who you are, David and Richard and Natasha. Well, Tim and Ernst, any questions that you may have, let us know via the chat. And I already have someone who has a question for Richard, and that is Sencha. Hello.
Hi, Richard.
Hi.
Hi, this is Sencha. Yeah, we know each other from the courses and the recent. I think last year we had some courses that we did together. I was wondering, are these ideas that you are talking about, are these also available online for the industry or for companies to look into?
Yeah.
And then also the other way around. So if industries or companies have ideas, is there a way that we can post them and that students can actually use that as inspiration?
Yeah. So both. The answer is yes on both of the questions. So you can, if you Google MedDesign, then you will find the website, and then you can click on the booklets and you see all the ideas that are made by the students, because we normally have all the reports online. And of course, if you have ideas that fit, of course, education and the things that the students need to learn, yeah, then you can put them into the database for students, and then the students can select. That's how many of these projects were started.
Oh, that's good. Good. Thanks.
Thank you. And I have a question for David. You are using ultrasound to penetrate right down to the cellular level. How new or innovative is this technique, and how is Erasmus MC supporting your research to achieve this?
That's a very good question. Thank you. I would say it is very new, probably the second lab worldwide to do this kind of research. This is something I have learned in the USA just before to come to Delft. So what we are trying to do is to label cells with acoustic contrast. So we want to be able to image not only blood vessels, organs, but even single cells. So this is the current really research track. I am involved in it with Erasmus MC, and we are soon going to start a project on head and neck cancer. So for example, looking at lymph nodes in patients. And I hope to do that very soon with the radiology department of Erasmus MC.
Great, great. And also, if you have questions for each other here at the table, feel free. Yeah. That is also allowed.
Yeah, so maybe I have one. Yeah. I just met Natasha. This is great. She works on potentially very relatable topics. I worked on imaging the heart in the past. Yeah, I'm just excited to discover what you do and potentially work with you.
Yeah, it would be very nice. Now I hear you talking like this. If you have the electrode and you have the sensors, put some ultrasound crystals in between, because then we can measure both the electrical activation and we can image the underlying anatomy.
Yeah.
So that will also enhance our understanding, and it can guide therapy. So
if
you can make it minimal invasive.
Yeah. Indeed, Convergence is happening right here at the table.
Yeah. To bring people together.
That is it.
If we go back to how we originally started, we had Tim and I, we had a conversation. Wouldn't it be nice if, yes. And then we started with bringing together 5 researchers from Erasmus MC. Yeah. Okay, that's it. You were one of them.
Yeah.
And 5 researchers from the TU Delft. And we just said, we are interested in your discussion. Would you see what is the opportunities that you would see in the collaboration between the TU Delft and Erasmus? Yeah. And they came back within, well, no time, and said, how much time do you have? Because we just started, but this is already exploding. Yeah. And then the next meeting we had was 200 people, and the next meeting was with.
Now we have hundreds and hundreds.
And it just went like this. Bringing people together and say, "Oh, are you doing well?" Yeah.
Yeah, amazing.
So we have an easy job.
Yeah, yeah. And well, that is very good. Natasha has a question. Another Natasha indeed. Ah, I hear that this question is for Natasha, so it's not going to be a Natasha for, it's not someone who's going to come on the screen. Here is your question, Natasha. You are the first to implement your improved mapping and analysis methods to conduct measures on patients, on young patients, I see in brackets. When do you expect to see the first concrete results?
Well, we already performed this procedure for several years now. And we wanted to know for the most common cardiac arrhythmia, that's called atrial fibrillation. We wanted to know which part of the entire heart plays a role in that. And there we discovered that the little bundle, which was described somewhere in 1932, and everybody forgot all about it, but the most common abnormalities were found in that specific region. So I hopefully, if you think about it, if it's so confined to that specific region and it plays a major role in it, you can also target your therapy to that. So that was the first discovery. The second discovery was that you wanted to know that when a patient develops an arrhythmia, you sometimes have it for seconds, then it becomes minutes and hours. So why does it transition from paroxysmal to persistent form? And then it turned out that the wall of the heart, which is only 2 millimeters thick, is actually completely asynchronous in patients who have continuous arrhythmias. So you have 2 layers and they are loose from each other in electrical activation. That was a completely novel mechanism. Nobody had ever described it. But the problem now is, if a patient has it, how can we cure that? And that's a major challenge. So yeah, some findings help you.
Interlayer between the two.
Yeah, you would think so, but if you take a look at the microscope, it's just a bunch of cardiomyocytes, so muscle cells which are connected to each other, and still they are functional dissociated. So that's why I need your imaging.
Yeah, back to you, David.
And physicists.
Yeah,
and physicists. Yeah, to model it. What happens? Yeah.
So what would you say then? Eventually, or now, is the difference between engineers and doctors?
Yeah, some of the doctors are engineers, I think. If you look at orthopedic surgeons, well, they're quite close to mechanical engineers, I think so. But of course, there's a difference. The engineers, they focus on using nature and the laws of nature to come up with new ideas. And the doctors, they try to heal the patient and heal people. And of course, they can use each other's knowledge.
Yeah.
But that's the main difference.
And could there be challenges also in the collaboration, perhaps? How do you work together? I mean, you mentioned what the differences are, but could there be?
To start with, you need to talk each other's language, and that takes some time.
Yeah.
And then I think that's the core. So it starts maybe earlier in education, educate people talking each other's language, and then they can more easily talk about the problems that they need. I think that's, you can go back into education quite easily.
But I think one major similarity between the two is both are very much oriented to problem solving.
Yeah.
Whether that's in an individual patient or it's a mechanistical issue or it is anything else, it's problem solving.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Not just understanding, but solving the problem, getting things done.
Yeah, and the interesting is, and I guess, David, you will have the same experience. Once you are able to apply new techniques to existing conditions, like you will find that there are actually other mechanisms never understood before, which then leads to the next question, which then leads to a better understanding of the disease, and that's it's a continuous circle.
Yeah, and I think also because a lot of people think if you say collaborate with engineers, like, oh, they make some kind of gadget and you use it for your patient. That's not the case, because then you don't have convergence. The convergence is we have a new technology, we apply it, we learn from it, we learn new things we don't understand. So we try to look for engineers who can help us understand it, and then you have the circle. And that's the way to success.
The funny is that with these examples, you look at devices and you look at, well, forgive me the word, but I'll use the word high tech. We think of something very complex. But what we see again and again and again is that when you start to understand and apply this, that in the end, it becomes easier and smaller and easier to manage. And you end up with patients being able to, or individuals to monitor themselves and act upon it themselves.
Wiebe de Vries, this person is really coming on the screen now. Great. You have a question.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes. Wiebe de Vries, Swiss Paraplegic Research. My domain is shoulder load in SCI, spinal cord injury, and we would love to tap into what people do in real life, because that's where shoulder complaints, pathology, pain develops. And we're hungry for data of participants in their real lives, but that we could learn from big industry who is doing that via smartphones, etc., etc. But that's only possible when data is secure, when people are willing to share their data, when data is stored securely, and there should be a certain benefit. Do you do any research on that topic? Because that's what we're really interested in.
Yes. If I may, absolutely, not only in the health domain, but much broader than that. You're absolutely right. It's all about data. Data is the new oil, as you know, or the new gold, it's also been mentioned. But you have to be very precise in using it and in extracting information from it. So we also have a whole department working on the ethical aspects of data and the way you use data and the way you store data. It's extremely important to involve these people right from the start of a research project and not at the very end. Is this an answer or?
Yeah, yes. But it's a struggle to find the way to a single researcher in an institute to connect to those departments with topics like that. But I fully agree with that in fact you should start at the start with users and all other stakeholders involved to come up with the notion, okay, we should measure in real life to solve a certain problem. Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Yeah, no, part of the strategy plan of Convergence Health and Technology is exactly that, so that we are able to exchange data, whatever data, and to have all the barriers that are there between the research, between the institutes are not there anymore, so that all the researchers are as if they are within one institute. So a core element that we see is exchange of data, and then connected to that is the ethical questions and all kind of other questions. But the data is an element of the facilities that we want to establish within the Convergence. So not one researcher, but for entire groups.
And one of the strengths that we add to that, even though the population may not always be large enough, depending on the research question that you have, was Erasmus MC has the unique experience that for very long now, it has built up already since the mid-1980s, very large cohorts of individuals who consented to being monitored, to have undergo repeated management of measurements, etc., in a full, very wide range. And they are willing to, they depersonalize the data. And then we are very willing to share that information. And that's a tremendous, so the way of participating is always having access to the data and adding further results to it. And we do so with other cohorts also in institutes worldwide. So with that, we've been able to build up cohorts together of really millions of people followed long term.
Luc van Koppen has a question. Hello, good evening.
Yes, good evening. Yeah, what I've seen is about previous innovations, that a lot of these innovations, such as surgery robots, were increasing costs rather than helping productivity and efficiency of healthcare. And my question is how we're going to do, because I acknowledge that there are a lot of possibilities for innovation in healthcare to increase productivity and efficiency, but how are we going to make sure that innovation in the future don't become a risk for the productivity and efficiency, since such as surgery robots has done in the past?
Yeah. Go ahead. No, you start and then Ernst.
Yeah, so So these are really good questions, because sometimes automatically when people think of technological innovations in healthcare, then they think of an increase in costs. But so that doesn't necessarily need to be the case. It is also about the healthcare system and how it is arranged. Somewhere I read it is as if you go to a supermarket without prices tags on the products, you put it in your car and then you go home and then you have an insurance for what the costs are. So that's a little bit over how it is, but so also the system is there. So the social sciences from Erasmus University are also involved in the convergence, looking exactly in those kind of issues.
Ernst?
Yeah, I usually think it's a very relevant point that you touch upon, and I usually like to turn the question around, and that is that if we are unable to, in a smart and efficient way, introduce technology into healthcare, the costs will explode due to the aging population and due to our opportunities, etc. So we have to be able to smartly introduce, and I emphasize smart. Obviously, the robotic surgery robot was a good example. Everybody liked it. It was very fancy, and we used it even for procedures where it had no benefits whatsoever. But once we learned from that, we actually showed that in specific procedures, it's saving costs, reducing the amount of time that people have to be admitted to a hospital, et cetera, et cetera. So we need technology to prevent a further explosion of our healthcare costs.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. We have another question, and this one is from Annelies van der Ham. Good evening. Hi. We see you. Annelies, I understood that you have a question. I don't know if you are muted or no. Okay, I hear that you don't hear us anymore. So let me give you the question that Annelies put in the chat. She says or asks, in engineering, new studies were introduced for more system approach, such as TPM. Will that emerge in the medical domain? I'm going to look at Richard.
Yeah, and I don't see her, so I talk to you.
Yeah,
maybe, yeah, so it will. So the system level of healthcare in TBM is a good example of what else of the TU Delft campus can be integrated in healthcare. And actually, when you look at all the faculties can be, just as Tim said, so also aviation. So the system level and the system thinking in healthcare is part of it. Yeah, the answer is yes.
Answer is yes, in short. Annelies, thank you for that answer, for that question, and that is your answer. And I see Sencha. Sencha is coming in for a question for someone or more of us here at the table. Sencha, hello, good evening.
Hi, good evening. So me again. So
yeah, you were here, I think yesterday or the day before.
No.
Oh yeah, I forgot. I saw so many this week.
No worries.
Go ahead.
So one of the big priorities in the world is the environment and the resources. And medical healthcare is a huge consumer of materials, and that are often used for a short period and discarded soon after. And what I know is many of these materials are incinerated by law. These materials cannot be reused. Simultaneously, the materials that we use are often medical grade, so very difficult and expensive to get. I was wondering, at the TU, are there any initiatives that are currently solving the issues in both worlds? So, for instance, sustainable and biodegradable materials that actually can be used in the healthcare.
Richard again, I mean, you're popular this evening.
Yeah, because actually what is really nice of the convergence is that these groups have met. So Erasmus Medical Center, Diederik Gommers, also a famous person, and the sustainable group, one of them or part of them in Delft, Connie Bakker. So they're already making plans for sustainable healthcare, and they started with pilot projects with students. And we are going to work on launching a couple of bigger projects, and this could be one of them. So they identified it, and they are already talking to each other, thanks to the convergence, just like what you saw on this table that happened some time ago. And indeed, it's a really good point that you have. But they see perspectives from their sustainable engineering point of view.
Ernst, would you like to add to
Sandra,
that?
thank you very much. This is a spot-on question because healthcare is such a waste producer. If you just look at Erasmus MC alone, our energy consumption as one hospital, although I mean it's the largest hospital in the Netherlands, but just one hospital, we use the same amount of energy as a city of 70,000 people. 70. It's huge. If you look at our wastewater production as one hospital, wastewater with medication, with bacteria, viruses, etc., is 200 cubic meters per hour. One hospital.
Compare that to.
Oh, you can make the comparison, but it's huge. You can fill many swimming pools per day.
Yeah.
And just focusing, and we do so, other hospitals also do. Radboud University Medical Center is now building a new hospital, which is very much focused also on reduction in energy use, etc. But also we have major initiatives to try and reduce our waste production, clean our own water, wastewater, etc. And this is one of the main targets for healthcare in the coming years. So spot on question. If we don't do that, then we fail to contribute in the same way as other institutes.
So we work on 3 avenues. One is using environmental friendly basic materials. That's the best option, in fact. Then circularity, reusing materials, and the first line is the cleaning of the waste streams. But all 3 are really engineering disciplines, engineering topics. So lots of work still to do. I agree completely with that.
Yeah. So Richard, I think I will connect with you after this.
Yeah, you have my address, I think.
Okay, great. Connections everywhere. Collaborations everywhere, convergence everywhere. Yeah. So for Tim and Ernst, we've talked about convergence in research, but how about convergence in education?
That's perhaps even more important.
Yeah.
Of course, research is important to create breakthroughs that make the world better step by step. But what we deliver are also new engineers, new young brains, and they have to build up the new society, the better society. So it's extremely important that we, let's say, the engineers of the future, that will be different persons than those engineers that are alumni and looking from via the screen. We try to create them with a, let's say, a more holistic view on the world, on what is innovation and how does engineering fit into that. And they have many more opportunities now to do so via this collaboration with Erasmus Medical Center. So they can easily travel from one campus to another. We have got large funding from the Groeifondsen, 1 billion in fact, to increase the train opportunities from Delft to Rotterdam. So it'll be even easier to go from one campus to another. So part of the day you do your studies in Rotterdam, you do your exercises here, or vice versa. So it's really a great time for students at the moment.
Hey.
Oh yeah. No, just as an example, I haven't told Natasha yet, but one of my sons just finished his bachelor in aerospace engineering here. And while waiting to start his master, he's now for a few months working at a startup here at Delft, which is a startup working on the early detection of cardiac arrhythmias. So last weekend together we were walking our dog, and my son in aerospace engineering actually started me to explain about cardiac arrhythmias.
Very good. That's the way it should be.
That's convergence.
Okay, so good.
I listened carefully.
Yeah.
But it's all about the new generation. Let's go.
Yeah, with everything actually. So also with this. And to like inspire and excite the new generation, David, what would you tell the others what you like the most about your work?
What do you like? It's curiosity driven, like, really this capacity to push ideas, figure out what you can do better, discover the brain, which is one of the last frontiers in science, you know, maybe with like space. This is so exciting, every day pushing ideas. Yeah, this is what excites me about this work.
And what is your dream to achieve?
My dream to achieve? Interesting. So we spoke in some of the questions were also really about the transfer of what we do, you know, to patients, to the general public. And I definitely hope that, you know, one day in the future, one of the things we have developed will really become useful to a greater group of people, either patients or end users in the public, to monitor your brain or something else. I really hope so.
Great, thank you. Well, let me see if there are any other, well, there are lots of messages in the chat, but let's see if there's one more that we will bring onto this table. And good thing my eyes are so good and so sharp that I can see, well, not really. I also have this to help me out to see what is coming here. Your questions are coming here on my screen. So one more question, no, because I also look at the time and I think it is good to wrap it up because we have heard so many good things here at the table. And yeah, first of all, thank you, Tim and Ernst, for taking the time to join us today. And also a big thank you to our Tech for Health scientists, Natasha, Richard, and David. Thank you for sharing your inspiring research with us. And of course, also thank you to all of you, the alumni and the viewers at home. If you want to know more about the research of Natasha, Richard, David, or Tech for Health in general, please visit tudelft.nl/Tech for Health and see how you can contribute as well. Thank you for watching.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
And thank you, everyone, again.